Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to Licia's Library. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for clicking on my face and tuning into this video. If you are not new, welcome back. Hey, what's up? As y'all can see by the title of today's video, we're going to be doing my January wrap up. So get a snack, get you a little drink, get comfortable because this one is a good one. Okay, let's get into the video. Actually, before we get into this video, I had to come on here. I was editing this video and I realized I did not include none of my stats, and that's important. So let me include my stats. I'm going to be posting the screenshots on the screen. The stats I am looking at are actually coming from Storygraph. If you are a fan of Goodreads and you want more visuals, you might enjoy Storygraph. It is Black owned and a very I think it's fun. I like it. It's not as social as Goodreads is. If you like that, you might not enjoy it. But anyways, neither here nor there. Let's get into the stats. So I read 9 books this month, 2,143 pages. I did that. It took me about 6 days to finish an average. And the page number stats. So 33% of my books were between 499 pages, and then 67% of my books was less than 300 pages. I don't know, I'm not mad at it. I feel like I could read longer books, but honestly, short books are impactful as well. So, it is what it is. And then as far as fiction and nonfiction, I read 11% nonfiction, which was 1 book, and then 89% fiction. I mentioned in my 26 and 2026 video that I wanted to make an effort to read more nonfiction, and I wanted to at least read 1 nonfiction a month. So for January, I definitely got that. I definitely met that goal, but I want to gradually increase and try to read at the bare minimum 1, but that is the bare minimum. I want to do above the bare minimum, okay? And so we're going to try to do 2 for February. And then for my genres, I really did a great job with diversifying my genres. That was also one of the things that I wanted to accomplish this year, was to make a bigger effort to expand my range when it comes to genres. So romance is always going to be the top girl, the head honcho, because y'all know I'm a romance girly through and through. But I also got some fantasy in there, the memoir in there, a little bit of history, all of those things. So I did good with diversifying my reading in that aspect, which I am really, really proud of. Format is the last one I want to include. So I did a great job with this as well. That was also one of my goals, to try to, I don't know if I actually said this in that video, but I also wanted to try to diversify. I want to read more books this year. My goal is 75 books this year. And I know for the majority of last year, I read most of my books physically. And while that's great and I love that and I still want to read physically, I also want to try immersive reading, try to listen to books on audio. I love podcasts. And so when I tell people that I kind of struggle listening to audiobooks, they ask me, do I like podcasts? And I say yes, and they don't really understand. But for me, and this might be a little, I don't know, but for me, if I start out reading a book physically, or even digitally, and I am just solely relying on reading with my eyes, if I start seeing the characters, I start visualizing how they look, visualizing how they sound. And so once I give them distinct voices, they don't sound like how they sound in my head. I can't really rock with that. I can't really rock with that like I could if I didn't hear them voices at first. And so one of the books I read immersively, and then another one it was easier because it was a nonfiction book, but whatever. I tried my best and I did really good. So I read 22% print and 22% audio and 56% digital, which that is 4 books print, that is 2 books print, 2 books audio. She ate that. And then 5 books digitally. I want to try to get more of my print books. I want to read more physical books this year as well. So I want to kind of like get a great balance. So that's going to be my goal for February. But I am super proud of being able to diversify my reading in that aspect. So yay, shout out to that. And then that is pretty much the last thing. Y'all know I do not rate my books anymore. Just because I don't really feel like it is necessary for me to do that. I would rather try my best to explain and get my point across on how I feel and whether I would read it again or recommend it, and just go from there. And I feel like that is a more comprehensive thing than a star rating for me personally. But that is pretty much it for the stats. Now we can actually get into the rest of the video. All right, y'all. So January was a pretty decent start to the year. I would say it's pretty good. I would say better than decent. Life be lifing, but I still got them books read. So in January, I read a total of 9 books. So let's get into it and talk about them. All right, so I'm gonna be looking down. I have my iPad. It has my notes and whatnot on here. But before we get into too deep, I'm going to start with the physical books. I read 2 physical books this month. I read Sky Full of Elephants and Here With You Forever by BriAnn Danae. I'm going to start with Here With You Forever. So this book is the second book in the Evermore series, and it follows Lyra as she is going through just trying to really like pick up the pieces after the death of her child's father. And so this book kind of details that experience and kind of gives a little bit of the behind the scenes, because we meet Lyra in the first book, but she is the best friend of the main character in that book. And we kind of get a little bit of insight and kind of know a little bit of what's going on. In the first book, we know that her child's father passed away, but we don't know the details of like how. We don't know the details of their relationship and what exactly their relationship is. But we get more of that here in Here With You Forever because it centers her. So on the back it says, after the devastating loss of her child's father, Lyra struggles to piece her life back together. Despite her best efforts to keep her distance, she finds herself entangled in a complicated situation. Trying to resist her growing feelings for her baby father's godbrother, Cree, Lyra grows overwhelmingly confused with mixed emotions. He was against the rules, strictly forbidden. So yeah, this gets a little interesting because she is having feelings for her baby dad's godbrother, and we saw a little spark of chemistry in the first book, but this one kind of gets into it more. And yeah, I'm not spoiling anything for the first book because that's a whole different character. We just kind of get glimpses of the story in that first book, but this one is a continuation of it, obviously. But I really enjoyed this. This was my second book by BriAnn Danae. The Here With You Forever was the first book I read by her, but I've really been waiting to get into this series, and I'm so happy I did. So far, I am truly enjoying it. I really like with this book that, we talked about grief, we talked about processing that and the interesting circumstances that you get put into, because in this case, Lyra has a child with someone that has passed away, so she has to still deal with, the other mother of his children, the family that he had that she is now tied to because of her son. And you don't get to easily, like, when you are not with somebody, you can easily like cut ties and move on and you can really act like they don't exist anymore. That's kind of how I get down, me personally. But when you have a child with someone, you are connected to them for life, and even after their passing. And so we kind of see how Lyra has to navigate that for the sake of her son, and kind of deal with a lot of like messiness and cattiness from some of her son's father's family. And it gets really, really interesting, and you're gonna want to like hem up a couple people in this book, specifically 2 characters but I'm not gonna get too much into it. You got to read it for yourself. I do highly recommend reading this book. I did enjoy it. I am gonna continue with this series because so far I have really enjoyed the writing. I really like the depth that's in here. It's not just a messy romance. It's a romance about grief and navigating loss, understanding like timing about everything, how timing plays a role in different relationships and really our lives in general. So I think it's really important. I think it's really a great take on those type of conversations. And so that's why I would say I definitely will recommend Here With You Forever. I had a great time reading it. Okay, so the next book I read was Sky Full of Elephants by Cebo Campbell. And this book I really had a great time with. I loved this book. Okay. And I'm gonna do a dedicated review on it. So I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to give my full attention and thoughts there in that video. So stay tuned for that. But this, like as you can see, I tabbed down. I had so many thoughts, so many feelings about it, and I knew going into it I would. So that's why I wanted to take my time in it. Initially, I went into reading this without the intention of annotating it, but then I got too deep into it. I was like 20 pages in. I was 20 pages into it, and I was like, I'm gonna need to annotate this. So I kind of like rewind it back a little bit to annotate it, but getting into a general synopsis of what this is about. So, it starts out with all the white people in the world, in America, just walk into a body of water and are no longer living on this side of the plane. And it is a central question about this book is, in a world without white people, what does it mean to be Black? And I think that going in, knowing that that was the central question around what this book would entail, I kind of knew that I would be very like, intrigued with it. Mind you, this is like science fiction, dystopian. This is my first science fiction dystopian book, and I had a great time. It would not be my last. But I think that in this one, it is centralizing the idea of what does it mean to be Black, but it's also a multitude of different conversations happening. Just for a general overview, so it says, one day a cataclysmic event occurs. All of the white people in America walk into the nearest body of water. A year later, Charlie Brunton is a Black man living in an entirely new world. Having served his time in prison for a wrongful conviction, he's now a professor of electric and solar power systems at Howard University. When he receives a call from someone he wasn't even sure existed, his daughter, Sydney, a 19-year-old left behind by her white mother and stepfamily. So, as you can tell, this story entails a sense of reconnection, or connection, honestly, between Charlie, a Black man in America who was in prison at the time of the event, and he is now free because of the event. And he randomly gets a call from his daughter, Sydney, who he did not even really realize was still on this side of the living. Okay, and he gets this call and she wants him to come and get her after being in isolation for a year after the event, because her whole family just checked out. And it was a question of, what do I do now in Sydney's perspective? And so she calls the only person that she can really think of and to come rescue her and take her to the South. And so this entire book, we are on this journey of them kind of connecting in order for her to get to the South. And it is an interesting conversation about race and identity and internalized racism, systematic racism, a whole bunch of issues that you don't really necessarily realize are racial until you start to peel back them layers on it. And it's like, yeah, that it's all the circle. It's all connected. It's all goes around in the circle. And I think it's very interesting to take that into account when we are talking about certain things regarding this country and America. But I do think the main point of this book was to I do think one of the main points was to talk about the identity of Blackness and what does it mean to be Black? How do you show up as a Black person? What does it mean, like, to be mixed? Like, how do you, navigate the world with those two different identities? And what is that? How do you interact with other people that you are supposed to be connected with? And it's just a big conversation about that, but I have to fully think out my thoughts on it because I am truly all over the place. But I do want to make a dedicated video about it. I'm not sure. I think it will be on YouTube. I'm definitely going to make a short maybe, but we're going to see. But I will be making a dedicated video for this book, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, I highly recommend, if you cannot tell. Okay, so the next book I want to talk about is an audiobook. I read read with my ears, 2 audiobooks this year. The first book this month. This month I read 2 audiobooks. The first one being 107 Days by Kamala Harris. And 107 Days by Kamala Harris was really a really great read. And it felt kind of, I read it at the top of the year. And so I really started it at the end of last year and finished it this year, but I read it before things started going from bad to worse. So having that perspective of everything that's going on now in this country, specifically like with ICE in Minnesota, like having that perspective from Kamala Harris kind of puts things into a very interesting outlook for me. But this 107 Days is a series of basically her journal. It's a memoir of journal entries when she is recounting what happened from the time that she got that call that President Joe Biden was dropping out of the election and basically starting her own campaign to run for presidency. And we go with her from the minute she got the call to where she is literally sitting in her house, sitting at her home on a Sunday making pancakes with her nieces, and she gets this call and she's like, what? And basically all hell breaks loose. In a sense of a word, all hell breaks loose, and she just hits the ground running and goes into that mode of like, we got to get this done. We cannot just fold and kind of let the country go to pieces, which, yeah. But yeah, so we get a very detailed rundown of everything that happened from the start of the campaign from July, from early July 2024 to the election and a little bit post-election, and even the beginning of 2025 before they changed roles. And so I think this book I really wanted to read this book because I think it's a constant thing where Black women are being, we get treated a very interesting way in America. We tend to be the most disrespected, and we always seem to get the short end of the stick until it's time to fix things and until it's time to, get things in order. Then that's when Black women get the phone call. That's when Black women, are supposed to put our cape on and save everyone. And I felt like that what was happening. And before I had went into the book, I kind of had that, thought lingering, but this really solidified that happening. And it really it makes me feel a way, honestly, especially with everything that is happening now. And I think reading that book, and really having that perspective. And I am definitely going to get the physical because I really want to like go through it and annotate it. I was saving clips and whatnot when I was like going through the audiobook, but I think that really getting a glimpse of behind the veil in a sense of what was going on, because as a non-politician, I go through and have these experiences where I face different microaggressions and things like that. And I don't necessarily think that being a person of status, especially the vice president, president-elect, would be absolved of those things. But I wanted to understand what those dynamics were. And she really paints a clear picture of, all of the microaggressions, the little things that she experienced being like that, not even from the outside world, not from the general population, but from, the messaging that Orange Man was spewing out during the campaign, and then the way that she kind of felt within exiting administration under the guide of Joe Biden as presidency, like how all of those things were in time, the way that she kind of felt a little bit like an outsider in a way. And I think that it is jarring to see that, because as someone who was running for the highest position, the most at one time, it was the most respected position in this country. And even to be, the next up, the second most respected position in the country being the vice president. And being the vice president. And I think that for someone who has reached those kind of ranks to still be dealing with the issues of microaggressions, racism, disrespect, and those things, I think it was disheartening to really get to that point and see that no matter how successful, how much you have proven that you are the right person for the job, how qualified or overqualified that you are, you will still be disrespected because you are seen as beneath. And yeah, I think it was a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that I kicked my year off reading that first. And I do think that everybody should read it, especially if you are a Black woman working in America, even not even just working. You would be unemployed. I still think that you should read this book, especially if you was on the side of the 92%. Shout out to us. I think that this book really entails, and kind of gets some behind the scenes of her personal life, not getting too much in the lady business because boundaries. But I do appreciate that she kind of like, rolled back the curtain a little bit and kind of gave us a little glimpse into, the dynamics with her husband, the dynamics with her family, the sacrifices that she made to be put into these positions, and, the years and years and years of hard work that she put in to even be able to run for presidency. I think that is very remarkable, and we kind of get a better understanding behind that, and a little bit of unveiling of the political landscape in that time. So definitely would recommend. I definitely think everybody should read that. And yeah, that was 107 Days by Kamala Harris. Y'all know I mentioned in my last video that I don't rate my books anymore, so that's why I have not given any ratings. So yeah. Okay, so the next book that I read on audio was All Superheroes Need PR by Elizabeth Stephens. Now this was my second fantasy. I read another fantasy that we will get into in a second, but I was kind of like, I don't know, I just randomly was like, I want to read something about superheroes. And I was like, what's that? Let me check it out. And this was written by a Black woman. Okay, period. Thank you. And so I said, okay, this looks cool. So All Superheroes Need PR is about our main female character. Her name is Vanessa Terrio, and she is the marketing director. Well, she is a PR director and CEO of her own marketing agency, and she is being contracted to do the rebrand for a super villain that is looking to pop teams. Okay, so he is looking to be rebranded as a superhero, switching sides. And we kind of basically go into that. So the super villain, his name is the Pyro. The super villain turned superhero, his name is the Pyro. And they kind of get out to a little bit of a rocky start. But baby, like, he's a very grumpy man. He is very grumpy, and he's just like, they just like, what is your problem? Well, I thought we was cool. What happened? I thought you was one of the good guys. And yeah, so we kind of like go on this journey of them end up like getting onto their rocky start, working together, and then there is a bit of a right, not really. It's like a fake dating thing that's going on in here, because Vanessa is basically contracted. In the contract, she is basically being contracted to be his Lois Lane. And we kind of took that journey of how that happened, why that happens, and what that entails, and the journey after that. And it was a very, very, very cute book. I really enjoyed it. I'm unsure if I want to continue the series. This is the first book in the series, Supers in the City. I am interested, but I'm not sure. I do feel like I did enjoy, because keep in mind, I'm not really an action fantasy girl. I'm very like being very bold this year. I don't know what's in the air for 2026, but we up in here, okay? But that is not my general thing. Like, that's not something I usually do. I usually go for it. And so I was kind of nervous. I didn't know how I would do with the action scenes and whatever that was going to be entailed in this book. But I will say, because I kind of immersive read this, so I read this mostly on audio, but I did finish it on Kindle because I was like listening, and then I kind of it was trying to figure out match my reading speed with my listening speed is interesting, but because I was listening, but I kind of was reading ahead too, so that's neither here nor there. But I was apprehensive about if I would be able to get through some of the action scenes because it was inevitable. But honestly, I do like how it was written. I do think it could have been a little bit more detailed, because we kind of saw what happened, but didn't really see what happened at the tail end of this. And I think that was kind of, I don't like the gap that left. And so that is the only reason I'm kind of apprehensive of if I want to continue the series. I did enjoy it though. I did enjoy the fake dating concept. And there is a little bit of a twist that comes along with that, that we kind of see that gradually unfolds and unravels over time throughout the book. And it gets very, very, very interesting. Okay, so my girl is Lois Lane, but she ends up putting her life put on the line, and she didn't sign up for that. So it gets very interesting, and I did enjoy it, and it made me want to read more books with superheroes. I am looking into reading some comics, possibly, that center Black female superheroes. So if you have some recommendations, because I have been searching, if you have some recommendations, please leave them in the comments below. And if you have other superhero books that are preferably Black, that aren't comics but are just general books, let me know, like drop them suggestions in the comments as well. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. I'm still kind of lingering on what I want to do, if I want to continue the series or not, because it is another book in the series called All Superheroes Need Photo Ops, and this one came out in November of 2025. I might read it. I'm looking at the synopsis of this one. Okay, I might read that. I might see what that's talking about. But I did enjoy the book though. I did enjoy the book. I thought it was a good time. I do think it lacked the detail that I thought that I kind of had the expectation of having with a superhero fantasy book, like fantastical book, even though it was mostly like, is that romanticy in a way? I don't know, but it was like the romance was great. It was cool, but I wanted a little bit more of the fantasy in it. You know what I'm saying? I want a little bit more of that action. So that's all. That's it. That's all. Okay, so let's get into the books that I read on Kindle, starting with the first fantasy that I read this year, which is the first fantasy that I read, period. It was a romantasy, but still, my first romantasy. But first fantasy, who am I? Okay, I don't know what's in the Air Force 2026, but it had me reading a fantasy child. I said, oh, okay. I read Son of the Morning by Akwaeke Emezi. I read this as a part of a book club that I'm in. I'm in Shelby in the book club, and we read this for January. And I'm going to read a little bit of the synopsis just so I can stay on task. And then I'm going to get into my thoughts. So it is a steamy paranormal romance set in the Black South that takes us on a journey of magic and fantasy. From the whispering creeks outside the city of salvation to the very depths of hell. Okay, so our main character, Galilee, she was raised by the Kincaids, a formidable clan of Black women that are basically witches. Okay, they a little witchy, a little spooky over here, but they cool for the most part. And Gally has always had this perception of feeling like an outsider. She's feeling a little different, and she's always known that she is different. And it's a very clear yet unknown secret that has been lingering around her whole life of what she is, where she fits, those type of things. And she just been having to live with it until she meets Lucifer Halil. Yeah, okay. And he is friendly as the head of security for her friend, and that she meets when she is set free and she gets about her mama and her grandma's house when she's 25, and she's like, yeah, I need to go live on my own. And she moves to the city of salvation where she is kicking it with her friends. And one of her friends is Oruku, and her daddy is a very, successful man. And he has this thing in his house, this artwork in his house, and he hires some security people to come, secure it. And that's when she comes across Lucifer Halil. And meeting him sets her on a path of discovery and unraveling. Okay? And she doesn't really know what she is getting herself into, but Lucifer, when he sets his eyes on her, he already know, yeah, you're not human. I don't know what you are, but you're not human, but I want that. Lucifer like, yeah, I need that actually, which, am I surprised? No, it's the devil. What you talking about? But he saw it and was like, yeah, actually, I need that. I need that here. Hand that over here. Come on, you're gonna come kick with me. And man, it gets into a very interesting thing going on with them. And then enter Leviathan. I hope that's how I pronounce it. I hope that's correct. Leviathan. And he is Lucifer's most trusted prince of hell. And he is like, yeah, she gotta go. She gotta go. And so it gets real messy. It gets real interesting. And it kind of like is poking and prodding at religion and the whole idea of, what's good, what's bad, who's right, who's wrong. And yeah, because I don't know, y'all. This book made me think about some things. And at one point in the book, I was siding with the devil. I don't know. I don't know. It had me questioning my morality because I said, what is going on? And I'm over here siding with the devil. But it was so good that I literally could not put it down. I read this book very quickly for somebody who has never fully read a fantasy before. I ate this book up, y'all, and I had to go searching for other books just like it because, for one, this is not my first Akwaeke Emezi book. I have read You Have Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by them. And that was one of my favorite books of 2025. Like, it was one of my favorite books, period, because I liked how they the conversation that they were having about grief and processing that, similar to a conversation that BriAnn and Danae had, but just in a very different way. That one was also messy. So I can very much count that whatever they write, it's gonna have some mess in it. And I'm just gonna hand it you. Thank you. I'm ready. Whatever you want. I'm ready for it. Whatever you want to give me. But I genuinely and thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I hope that it's going to be some kind of continuation of it, because it needs to be a continuation of it. I need to know. Them ends was a little too loose for my liking. I need them to be tied up. So, no pressure, but yeah, I need that. So, if you just so happen to come across this video, Akwaeke, love you down. Need the next part. But yeah, I very thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a great time. And it also outside, yeah, it's a great time. It's a lot of like romantic mess, but it's also a lot of religious mess, and it also features some questionable things between heaven and hell that you kind of just like, hey. Okay, so the next book I read digitally on Kindle was All Hours, an urban winter novella by Karalynne K. This was a continuation of All Mine by Karalynne K that I read last year, and we're right back into the story of Six and Montana. And now that, I don't want to say too much because it is a continuation, so I don't want to say too much because that would kind of be a spoiler if you have not read that book. I do recommend, it was also one of my honorable mentions for 2025. I definitely highly recommend that if you are a romance girl, if you like urban romance, I definitely think that you would enjoy All Mine. I just really just thought about that. I'm like, I cannot really say too much. Just know that it is a continuation of Six and Montana's story, and I ate it up. I had a great time, and I cannot wait for Jackie's book. Need that. Thank you. And then the last 3 books I read were a series by Zee Reneé. So I read the All To Me series, books 1, 2, and 3. I read When He's Not There, Here Forever, and then The Wright Way. And I thoroughly enjoyed this series. It was very interesting, honestly. I had found out about this series on Threads. Somebody had posted something, and it was like talking about the last book, and I was like, oh, what is that? I need that. And then I went and I looked and I said, oh, this is a series. I need to start from book 1. But they were all pretty short. I think all of them were less than 200 pages, so I kind of flew through these every night back to back. I'm like, yeah, what's next? And then I got done and I was like, this was also my first time reading Zee Reneé as well, but I thoroughly enjoyed the series. And first off, we start off with, I'm just going to give the synopsis of book 1 and kind of talk about that because I can't really give, the rest of it because it would be a spoiler. However, book 1, we start off with Truce. He is the main male character. He is very much like a reformed can I say that? I'm just here internet. This is my show. He's a reformed good nigga, okay? And he is, a very ambitious man. Thank you. He's a very ambitious man. He has his own business. He's doing very well for himself. And then he runs across, he's very much like, if I want it, it's mine. If I like it, it's mine. Period. Like, if I want it, I'm going to get it. What are we talking about? That's kind of the energy, the demeanor that Truth has about himself. And enter Sanaa. So Sanaa is a risk taker. She's in this relationship and she, she's in a very interesting relationship and she just kind of doesn't really, like, she's not having a good time anymore. She knows something is up. She knows the end is near and she just needs somebody to come save her, come get her out of this mess and into truth. And we kind of go on the journey of how that unravels and plays out. And when I say it gets a little messy, it gets a little messy. It ain't a lot of bang bang shooting up in here, but if that's not your style, you probably won't enjoy this book because it kind of sneaks up on you. That you'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't think this was in here. Just love it. Just a little bit. It's a little bit up in there. But it's a great time and they go by really, really fast. I enjoy all of these books. I definitely want to get physicals of these because I need them on my shelf. So sorry. I need them on my shelf. And this made me want to read more of Zee Reneé's work. So hopefully throughout this year, I will continue to find more authors more new to me authors that I thoroughly enjoy. And hopefully jump into some new series, some new books. And yeah, I cannot wait. Overall, I had a great reading month for January 2026. Started off pretty right in this department. Can't speak for everything else. In this department, we ate that. Next I want to get into, I didn't really watch too much of anything. So I don't have a show or a movie to talk about, but I do have music to talk about. So January was a pretty good month for music. So I listened to Ari Lennox's project, Vacancy, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I thought it was good. I think that Ari Lennox gets a lot of Ari Lennox, I think, gets put into a box because people thoroughly enjoy Shea Butter Baby so much where they want her to keep making, different versions of that, similar to Summer Walker. And I think that when an artist's first project is so good that they get boxed into this category, this style, this sound, and where it gets to a point where people are not so welcome to growth. And I think that is very unfortunate for artists, especially like Ari Lennox, when, a lot of people, even with her second project, Age, Sex, Location, I loved it. I thought it was good. I'm going to mention it in a second because it was also another album that I kind of like went back and revisited after listening to Vacancy. And I was like, wow, like this was so good. Like both of them were such good projects. To me, she had a very good discography for this to be her third album. Like she does not have bad music. Even Soft Girl era, when you listening to it in sequence, it sounds better than it did as a single, and I really appreciated that as well. So I have been playing Ari Lennox this month, listening to her album. One of my favorite artists, one of my favorite artists, Phabo, released a new album. It's called Rachet and Blues. Phabo is one of my favorite artists. I listen to his music on rotation all the time. I have several of his songs on a vast amount of different playlists. And he's always popping up. So I cannot wait to hear new music from him. But I thoroughly enjoy Rachet and Blues. It did not feel like it wasn't long enough. It was like 37 minutes and it's 15 songs. I mean, that's about 2 minutes a song, 2.5 minutes a song maybe. So, okay, can we get some 3-4 minute long songs again? What's going on? Yeah, so I thoroughly enjoyed listening to Phabo's Rachet and Blues as well as Ari Lennox. Both of those came out on January 23rd. And as I mentioned earlier, I had, like, once I listened to Vacancy, I went back and listened to Age, Sex, Location. Chef's Kiss, loved that. And I also went and revisited SOS by SZA. That was really one of my favorite albums when that came out. I have it on vinyl, and I just thoroughly enjoyed that. So yeah, it was cool to kind of like go back and revisit. That's kind of my jam. Sasha Keable is also releasing a extended version of her EP Act Right, Act 2. It's not out yet. It is upcoming. It's set to release Friday, February 6th. So the day y'all seeing this, it is out right now. And I'm excited for that because I ran Act Right into the ground. The whole EP, I ran it into the ground. I have still been listening to it. Move It Along featuring Leon Thomas is one of my favorite songs. And also While We Are Here, Yes It Is, has been on rotation this month as well. And yeah, I loved it. Also, I listen to a lot of playlists, so I'm trying to like figure out what albums specifically. Also, I found, not necessarily found, I've heard her before, but Girlfriend, she released a project. Honey Water, Girlfriend is an artist from Memphis, and she's R&B and soul, and I really enjoyed Honey Water. It was very dope. I forget that she's from Memphis, and then I heard her talk about it, and I'm like, yeah, because I've heard her before. She was featured on a couple of, I'm not sure if it's a couple. I know for a fact she was featured on at least one of Don Tripp's, which is also another Memphis artist, also one of my favorites. One of his projects before, and that's kind of how I discovered her. So I like going back to visit her own independent projects. So she released Honey Water on January 16th, and it is indeed a great album. So that is all for the books and music that I have listened to. I am in the process of working on some few things. If y'all have any video suggestions, let me know. I don't know if y'all can tell by, it might not be this bad, but the echo in the last video was a little, the last two videos was a little, and I was trying to see, but I'm in a new space, so we have some things to do. I have some things up my sleeve, and we're gonna get the ball rolling on those very, very soon. So I do have some different content coming soon, still in the realm of books, music, and media. Still in the realm of Licia's Library. But if y'all have any specific videos that y'all would like to see from me, I am working on a couple different videos for Black History Month. Happy Black History Month! Oh my gosh! Happy Black History Month! To my people, thank you. Praise God. 100th anniversary of Black History Month. Period. It's a great day to be Black. But yes, so I am working on a couple different concepts for videos for Black History Month. So we will get into that a little bit later. But like I said, if you have any video suggestions for me, and leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like it. Please make sure you subscribe. I really do appreciate it. If you would subscribe to my channel and like this video, it really kind of helps get more eyes on this channel. I'm not sure if the hype button is showing up for me, but if it is, hype girl, thank you. And yeah, that is pretty much it. I will try to, I don't necessarily have a link for every book, but I will list them all in the description box, as well as the music that I mentioned. I will list them in the description, list that in the description box as well. And other than that, I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all.